Well, it's Long John, Long John. He's long gone, long gone. He's long gone, he's long gone. He's long gone, long gone. Well, if I had listened, what the roses say, what the roses say, I could been at home, I could been at home. And the roses say, and the roses say. Well, if I wouldn't listen, well, I wouldn't listen. Got to run and run.
You're listening to the Talk Tank Podcast.
Starting recording. Okay. So, Jason, do you want me to use your full name?
Sure.
Okay, so with us we have Jason Dixon, who contacted me through which medium? I cannot remember. Was it Reddit?
Yeah, it was Reddit.
And what forum was it?
It was in the prison subreddit.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do, Jason, was I don't know if you've looked at my podcast, but it's kind of like I'm a poor man's Joe Rogan, and that's even a compliment. But I like to have people from all different walks of life and all different, religions and spiritual beliefs, and I have ghosts. But Bigfoot's a big thing for me because I have like this constant theme of Bigfoot going through my whole podcast. But I wanted to branch out and just interview everybody, and cover all different experiences. So someone that had a story like yourself was one of the ones that I really wanted to cover.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I followed up, started listening to a lot of the back episodes to get familiar with the platform and what your show is.
Yeah. All I do is talk crap, and the guest does most of the talking. So takes the pressure off me. So no, I do have some questions, but
sure.
So you're in Philadelphia, right?
Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that Philadelphia?
Oh God, no.
It's not?
No.
Oh, it's Pennsylvania.
No.
Sorry, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay.
I'm Irish. I'm sorry. I forget these kind of things.
We're on the opposite side of the state.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold on. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Hold on. Well,
Philly's over on the coast. And someone's going to get mad about this, but they're kind of a city in decline where...
oh, yes, I went through it.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's very much in a renaissance right now.
Pittsburgh is closer to Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My wife's from Kentucky, so...
Okay.
Yeah, I get confused all the time, but they're both in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Right, okay. That's what I meant. I went through the Philadelphia once, and we drove... I think 95 goes right through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing some of the ghettos just from the highway, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, North Philly is like a third world country. It looks like a war zone, and not to deride anybody that lives there. I know quite a few people that live in North Philadelphia from my past experiences, and it's just a failure of the city. But yes, if anyone has ever seen it, it looks like an American Fallujah, or the worst possible situation you can imagine. And most of Americans don't see it. They're on a train or they're on the highway and they zip through it. But it's a really bad situation in Philly. We don't really have anything that equals that in Pittsburgh. We have some rough areas, but nothing like North Philly and the Badlands and that whole area of town.
Well, I have even in Massachusetts here, we have some towns that are like that, Holyoke and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're just I actually took a day off one day and just drove to Holyoke because I saw the pictures and I just wanted to see it for myself. And when you got there, it was just it's just like what people talk about Detroit looks like and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this place is so scary, and it's probably just swamped with drugs.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah.
That's probably, or that's not why, but that's probably one of the reasons. And it's, I don't know how anybody brings up, and I saw, actually I was driving through Holyoke, and there was some guy just wheeling his baby through the center of town. And he was like wearing jogging clothes, so he was out for a jog. So I'm like, how do you live here? I'm like,
because they're trapped, and not to digress onto some other, branch here, but they, it's an engineered system that was forced on a lot of these communities, and they're very efficient at locking up black males. So when you've got at least a fifth of the taxpayers that have been incarcerated, and a lot of times can't vote, when they come home they can't get jobs, their income goes down. They can't afford to keep up their houses. The property rates go down. Then the tax dollars that come from those property values, that goes back to the schools. The schools start failing. Now you're in this cycle of just perpetuating this virtual enslavement. And a lot of people say, why don't they just move? They can't move. They don't have the money to move. They don't have the credit.
Joe Rogan says that shit all the time when they just move. I'm like,
nah, they don't have the ability to do that. And it was a lot of times, we're obviously going to get into a talk about prison, but there was a lot of times that when people would be in these rehabilitative programs, a lot of despair and hopelessness in that, they would say, look, you don't understand, they would say to the instructors, you don't understand where I'm going back to. You don't understand the world I'm going back to. Like, I might, this is the best life I've ever had here. I'm going back to a war zone. I'm going back to where my families are in gangs and my family is addicted to drugs. And, and they're trapped in these situations. And the people that aren't trapped in those situations, it's very convenient to point the finger and say, oh, look at those people. How do they live like that? Look at their neighborhoods. There's something wrong with those people. Meanwhile, that system has been engineered and put upon them, in my opinion.
Okay. So, where does your journey start? The reason why you're on the podcast is because you've had quite a remarkable journey, and you have came out the other side,
Sure.
in a good place. So, if you would like to tell our audience what happened and where your journey starts.
It starts off with I was a pretty wild kid. I didn't listen to my parents, rebelled against everything, had run away in high school, was running with a kind of a local gang, I guess you could call it, and ended up leaving home. I kept leaving like my area where I grew up just to kind of find new things. I think everybody kind of like
I did that, yeah.
Right, everybody wants to go off and see the world, but I grew up in kind of a touristy area. People want to come there, but it was bland to me. So I wanted to go off and find some adventure, I guess. And but I had barely a high school education. I had kind of like just messed around in college a little bit, nothing serious, and it had constantly had an affinity for just drugs in general. Pretty much anything. Pills and psychedelics and cocaine, and never really a fan of weed, but
I'm not a fan of weed either.
Yeah, I just
take that shit.
Yeah, it just wasn't me, But anyway, so I was on the road and going to different places, and I ended up settling down somewhat in Pennsylvania here. Just life kind of worked out that way. And I ended up with a strong and serious bout of kidney stones. And one of the last one damn near killed me. The way they took it out caused a lot of damage. I had to get a series of surgeries to fix it.
Okay, now how old are you right now?
I'm 40.
40, okay.
I was 21 or 2 at the time.
Okay.
So I was about 21 at the time. And they put me on, ridiculously high painkillers. I mean, granted, I'd had quite a bit of surgery and I did need them, but they kept me on them for quite a bit. And, I really liked them and was very good at convincing the doctor that I needed much more and much more and much more and much more. And then one day they were like, okay, listen, you're fine. You know, you're completely healed. We can't just keep giving you these. And they cut me off.
Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared for, the shock of that. And, was immediately sick, you know, so I start finding people that have pills and I start buying pills. Well, that gets very expensive. And, eventually, Pittsburgh is a huge heroin city. There is heroin everywhere in this area. So this whole southwest Pennsylvania area. I mean, now it's really the Northeast, but at the time, Pittsburgh was really a hub for heroin. And, I always had a stigma about it, you know. No, would never do that. And I think everybody has that story that got into heroin. But, you know, it eventually became, more financially viable to, instead of buying $80 pills, to buy two $10 bags.
Right, just snort it, right?
Right. And snorting, it's easy. You don't have to use a needle, you know, it's not, it's nothing gross, nothing weird.
Right.
You don't really feel like you're doing heroin. You're snorting heroin instead of a pill. Big deal.
Yes, Steve Tyler did it and all these rock stars. So what?
Right.
Right?
Oh, it's easy to rationalize. Yeah, you can find all kinds of like ways to rationalize it.
Exactly.
And eventually that starts getting expensive and everyone ends up going to injecting it. And then you're really in it. You're really in it. And there's not really any coming back from that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
My family, after, you know, my family had tried to intervene a little bit. I hid it from them pretty well because I was in a completely different state. But, I lost my ability to work. I had a decent job considering I didn't have much education. I was just kind of naturally smart. So,
Right.
I could get through things. I had a decent job. I was making okay money, but I was so high all the time. You know, I was on heroin and taking coke to like pick myself up to go do my job when I had to talk to people, and then coming back down on heroin, and it was this weird up and down cycle. But the job paid pretty well, so it allowed me to kind of live that way for a while. But it just got so out of control that I couldn't maintain it, so I lost that job.
But were you able to take just a little bit of heroin and act? Because when I've ever taken painkillers, which I have had for my back, I am like so talkative and like so like it feels like my wife's totally different.
Exactly.
It zonks her out, but for
Yeah.
me, it's like cocaine for me. It's like it makes me feel like I'm on top of the world. That's why I stay away from them. It
made me extremely social, and then I would, you know, kind of nod off. But,
Right.
yeah, I've never been just take a little bit of anything.
Right.
I take it all. I mean, I'll take it all. And that's kind of where this leads. Because once I lost my ability to have any income coming in, you know, the typical junkie route is to start selling things you own. Well, that didn't last very long. And one night I was buying drugs from somebody, and I'd pulled up and he got in the car, and I'd never seen this dude before, and he was kind of young and he seemed kind of dumb, and he wasn't really paying attention. I don't know if he was drunk or what, but something seemed off about him. And I was desperate, and he had a gigantic amount of heroin in his pocket, and he pulled it out, and I stuck a pistol in his face. And I said, just drop all that on the floor and get out of my car. And he freaked out and he just ran. You know, just no conversation. He just bolted. Door was wide open and everything. So
Nice.
I just, you know, I just broke out and the door shut on its own from accelerating, and, you know, freaked out. I was super freaked out. Don't know like what the decision was to do that. It just happened. I was in a bad place. I was desperate. I had a gun, and just, I don't know, just you're in that life. I guess it's just a consequence. And
yeah, for sure.
Got home, realized I had a ridiculous amount of heroin all of a sudden, and I think it was some other stuff, you know, mixed in, and thought maybe this, if I'm capable of doing it once, maybe I could do this a couple more times. I'll just find these kids I don't know in these sections of town I never go to. And I had this whole thing worked out. And I did that a few more times, and it actually all went off okay until I went to a part of town that I was familiar with and went there regularly when I used to buy heroin. And some people, somehow the word got around. They recognized me and started shooting at me immediately coming down the street. I hadn't even turned down the road I was supposed to turn down. I just went into this neighborhood, and they're just like letting off shots from the corner. Yeah, it was pretty wild. And so that really, I went home, kind of collected myself and said, okay, no more of this shit. Like, this is too much. I can't, this is going too far. There was a lot of moments like this where, like, I have this self-talk, but self-talk never really worked. And, so I had learned some skills at my previous job that I could have done on my own. So I actually had this idea that I was going to try and put together, my own little operation and just keep a basic trickle of money coming in to try and finance this drug habit. At least keep me on my feet, keep me in my apartment until I figured something else out. So that week I went to an Office Depot. I think it was an Office Depot. Yeah, Office Depot, and I was buying like toner and copy paper and pens, like real normal stuff. And I'm at the register, and the girl opens the register, and there's just like a ridiculous amount of money for a cash register.
Right.
They had not made a drop in what looked like a month, and it was just like a retarded amount of money in this register. So I pay for it, and I go outside, and I remember sitting in my truck and doing this whole mental dialogue again. Like, am I really going to do this? And I realized that, like, I'm running out of heroin today. I'm going to be sick. Like, you've done this a couple times before. What is the difference? What is the difference? You're not going to hurt me. Like, I had no intentions of hurting anyone.
Right.
It was just desperate, just pure desperation. So went back in and I grabbed something and I put it on the counter, and she opened the drawer, and I put a gun on the counter. I just put it on the counter. I didn't point it at her. It was just put it on the counter, and I just said, "Yo, just take everything out of there and just put it in a bag for me. And I'm not going to hurt you. Just please do that." And she did. And that was it. I left and drove away. That was it. I mean, it was that easy. It was that simple.
No cops, but did you hear sirens in the background or anything?
No, I knew the area really well, and it's a pretty little it's a little urban area surrounded by hills and valleys. I mean, there's like 8 million ways to disappear out of that place. So I just disappeared off into the back roads, and I suddenly had a lot more money than I was used to. So my drug intake went through the roof. And
how much was it?
I mean, probably a couple $100 a day. It's good.
But they have cameras everywhere though too, don't they?
They did, but they didn't work. I didn't know that.
Oh, shit.
In that state, you don't care. You know what I mean? You don't care. Like, I had a hat on, so really, that actually factors into the last robbery. So none of these places actually had working cameras. And so over the next 2 weeks, I did this 4 more times for a total of 5 robberies. And the very last one, I was walking out of the store, and I took the gun. There was a magazine in front of the register, and they'd all kind of gone off the same way, I took my gun because for whatever reason, he didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't have anything on me. He didn't give me a bag or anything, so I stuffed the money in my pants. But then I realized I didn't know what to do with the gun, so I grabbed this magazine. I folded it up around the gun like a taco, and I just walk out of the store. Really, I figure there's not a lot of people around, and as I walk out, there's a cop standing 2 doors over leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette with the biggest revolver, and I grew up around guns, the biggest damn revolver I've ever seen in my life. And I just know he's just going to blow this huge hole in me, like, any second. And I just take off, like, where I'd parked my car for my grand getaway was in this weird spot, so I had to, like, walk through the grass behind this building. I know it looked weird as shit to this cop, but I turned around and he was just looking at me very strangely, like, what are you doing? It was pouring rain out. I was dressed kind of nicely, and I'm, like, walking through the mud and grass to go behind this building, like, very quickly, all shifty, you know? So, but nothing came of it, you know? I got in the car, took off, no sirens, nothing. It's just a delay, I guess, in calling these things in and communicating. And that incident scared me enough that I paused for a little while in doing this. And as I started running out of money again, I just ended up meeting this girl that became like a partner in crime for the next couple months. That was also an addict. She had like a dictionary of hustles and scams and just all these things I'd never even thought of. So she constantly had a flow of drugs around her, and that put a stop to me doing like major crimes like that.
Right.
And really, it seemed like, you know, months had gone by, and we hadn't had any contact with the police, and you know, we just kind of all forgot it went away. And we went back to, it was months later, we were going to get some drugs from one place, but this dude wasn't answering, so she wanted to go back towards this area where all these crimes had happened. And I kept saying, no, like, I don't even want to go near that, you know, don't even want to go over to that part of town at all for any reason whatsoever, because it wasn't the actual city of Pittsburgh, it was a suburb. It had different police force and everything, so I felt safe if I wasn't there, you know. And we went to this little part that I didn't know was a borough of that town. So they saw us leaving this house that they had been watching, and we didn't know. And they pulled us over around the corner. And I figure it's just these little local cops. They had 2 cops in this whole town. Little local cops. Like, we're not going to have a real issue. But they called in a dog to search the car, and when that cop showed up, it's a cop from the city where I'd done all these crimes.
Oh, boy. And
I suddenly realized, I asked, you know, like, why are they here, you know? And I realized as he was saying it, shit, like, this is a part of that town, you know, like it's like a municipality or a borough of this larger town. And then he starts having a lot of interest in me, and they didn't find anything in the car, but they take me anyway because they found like a drug wrapper or something, a heroin bag wrapper. So they take me in, and one by one, as I'm in this holding cell in this police station, these cops are coming in and like telling me to look at them so they can look at my face and stand up and looking at me, and they're like, "Oh yeah." So I know they're piecing this together. Okay.
Are they being nice though? Are they being respectful?
Yeah. It's a very professional police force in that town, and they're just geeked. They're just geeked because I think they're about to solve a big crime. You know, they think it's a big crime. I had a unique automobile. Someone had gotten a partial description of my car. So my personal description plus this kind of unique car, it was a match. You know, and if I was them, I would have done the same thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they interrogate me for quite a while, and I just, you know, lie. And after about 3 hours, they kick me loose. They don't have anything. So they fingerprint me. They take my pictures. And the detective was frank. He was like, "Look, I'm gonna start investigating this. I think you did this, and we're gonna start contacting witnesses. So just that's it. Take it off." So, the girl I was with at the time disappeared. Was supposed to come back one day and just never came back. And eventually, you know, I didn't know, I had no idea what to do. My family had come up about that time. My mother had, and tried to stage an intervention. And I just told her this is, who I was, and this is what it was, and just broke that woman's heart and sent her home. And honestly, in the spectrum of things I've done, that's one of these things that God, I wish I could take back from the world. I sent her home, thinking I was going to die this way soon, and so I was just trying to figure out how to. She had this rehab calling me. She had offered to send me to rehab. This rehab was pestering me quite a lot, and I was like, "Yo, I'm not going to rehab. Like, I'm not going to rehab. Just stop calling me, leave me alone." And I was calling the same people that I used to get drugs from and making these small deals and kind of getting by. And one day I go to get the car, like 2-3 days after I've been released. I go to get the car, and there's all of a sudden a whole lot of guns pointed at me, and they're asking where this girl is that was living with me. And I'm like, I genuinely don't know. And they tell me that she's just zipping across town all over the place, setting up everybody she can find and everybody she knows for drug sales to get out of some charges that I was unaware of. So that kind of activity happened a few times over the span of like 2 days. Like things started getting really hairy pretty fast, and I just had to get out of Pittsburgh. My drug use was still very bad. There was people I legitimately thought might kill me over all of this, due to association with this girl. And all of a sudden, rehab in Southern California was sounding really nice. And I eventually took them up on it and left everything behind, in Pittsburgh, and flew out to Southern California. And got my life together somewhat, for that part of it,
How was rehab? I mean, your first day of not taking heroin, you took it every day, right?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I a lot of heroin, a lot of, Valium and Xanax. So, I had a really rough time coming off of, I had to go to the hospital. I was in rehab for 2 days, and the withdrawals were so bad, I had to go to a hospital, for a week. And, they medically brought me down. I went back to the rehab. The rehab was extremely bizarre. It was a very strange place. Not because of rehab, just because of this rehab. And that's a kind of another story. But the experience itself, I was there for 4 months. And I gained all my weight back. I wasn't, I got there, I was 119 pounds. And I'm 5'8". So I got back up, to like 170. I had a tan. I was working out again. It was just, I was living in Southern California, a place I'd always really enjoyed. And the rehab really wasn't worth much, but the experience, I had this kind of epiphany that there was a life out in this world that I could reclaim, or that I could claim, that was way better than what I thought my trajectory through life had been. Even without drugs, I just saw like all these new things and had these new realizations. And at that moment, I just realized like I had this second chance. I can start putting things back together. I got lucky that I escaped all these problems in Pennsylvania that I caused. I'm now in Southern California. I can start rebuilding a life. I can, bring my daughter out here. I had an 18-month-old daughter at the time.
Okay, so the story's over. That's it.
Yeah.
The story's over. You're all set.
Right. That's it.
But it's not.
It's not. One day, middle of the day, they asked me to come down to the office, and it was a phone call, which was not completely irregular. Sometimes a family would call, or my daughter's mom would call, and pick up the phone, and it's the original detective from here in Pittsburgh.
Oh, boy.
He said, we've put together enough evidence to charge you with 5 armed robberies, and I need to know what you want to do. And I'm like, what are my choices,
Jesus.
And he said, you can come back here, and you can turn yourself in, and I'll give you a couple days to do that. Or we're going to start kicking in every door that you've ever been associated with until we find you. And the idea of them doing that to my mother, to my relatives, to my daughter, of police raiding the house where maybe my daughter was sleeping.
Oh boy, yeah.
I couldn't stomach it, and I said no, please don't. I will come back. I said I need more than just a couple days. I need to go home and see my parents in Florida, and we need to figure out a legal strategy. I said, how much time could you give me? And he's like, I can give you 10 days. And before I'll put the warrants in. He was very generous. And I said, okay. He said, look, be here at the jail on this date, turn yourself in. And that's what I did. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know how bad this was going to be. So I did. I went home and my mom knew what was going on. My dad did not. They're not married. I just spent some time with my dad and didn't tell him what was going on because I was enjoying the time with him. And so I flew up here, turned myself in. I found a lawyer. The lawyer sold me this dream of these, what now I realize was an impossible dream-like sentence that never would have happened in a million years. He deliberately lied to me really bad. And so I turned myself in. And I was in the county jail for quite a bit of time, fighting with this attorney who just was a disaster. I ended up switching attorneys, but by that time, there wasn't a whole lot they could do. And I went into this jail naively, not knowing a lot about the court system, naively thinking I was going to have about a 2-year sentence. And I had to sign paperwork for a plea agreement to save myself, seriously, save myself from something much, much worse, for 5 concurrent sentences of 7.5 to 15 years. My lawyer was very, very frank, and I always appreciate him for this, as hard as this was to hear. He said, look, this is the best you can possibly do, and if you fight this, he can put these back to back to back to back to back, all 5 of them. And there's nothing you can do. It's perfectly legal. So hardest choice I've ever had to make. I signed it, went into court the next day, tried to give the court the most sincere apology I could, and just kind of left it with, if and this is how I justified it with myself too, to make it easier, was that if this is what the victims, if the victims feel like this is justice, then this, this is what I'll do. Okay, I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to argue with it. It was a really hard day, and so got shipped off to the state prison system, and went in the state prison system with, what felt like forever in front of me. How do you deal with, because I didn't know didn't know when they were going to let me go. As far as I knew, I had 15 years in front of me. And, you can have all the optimism in the world about getting out, on your minimum date, the parole board being very generous to you and letting you out. But there's no guarantee to that. Who knows what's going to happen while you're in there? It's very easy to catch new charges from just trying to survive in there. So I spent, the first 2 years with just kind of coming to terms with, I barely have a high school education. I'm now a felon. I'm stuck on the top of this mountain in this prison. My life was just, I felt like it was over. I felt like I had something at once, like I'd gotten it back, and now it just felt like it was over. I owned nothing. I didn't really have anything. Everyone was so far away from me. You're just kind of on your own island out there, man. Your own.
And you had a daughter too, also. That freaks me out because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and Not to see her would kill me.
I was lucky that she was only about an hour away from where I was. Now, her
That's
mom
good.
wasn't able to bring her to me quite often, but I don't fault her so much for that. Her and her family were very, very diligent and very good, and I will thank them for the rest of my life that they never talked bad about me to her while I was in prison, and they never told her I was in prison, and they just said I was away, and she would come and visit me, and the visits were great, and
Right.
I would write, and I would send her pictures, and she would draw me pictures, and they had a program at the prison where you could read books to your kid, and they'd videotape it and send the book and the videotape to your kid, and I did everything I could to maintain a relationship with her. Because really the only reason I came back, the only reason I did this, the only reason I signed that plea agreement, all of this, was just to be her father. Like, that was it. Because that's all I really had.
Yeah.
So, as time goes on, I'm there for about 2 years, and I started undergoing this weird change. You spend, there's a strange value to that isolation, where if you start interpreting the isolation as solitude, isolation is kind of enforced upon you, where solitude is kind of a choice. If you start thinking of it as solitude, it allows you to think, and you really have a lot of time to think in prison. And there's a lot of quiet, long nights that you have to think. And it gave me a lot of time to pick apart my past and to come to terms with it. And why did I have such an affinity for drugs? What was I trying to quiet down? Why am I self-medicating like this? Why am I so self-destructive?
Yeah.
You think through these things, and then you get to a point where you start asking, well, the fuck am I going to do? Like, what is the plan? What am I going to do? And I didn't have a clear answer, but I just started looking. And we had an amazing prison library. I got very lucky with that. And I started reading pretty much anything I could get my hands on. And I'd always been a history nerd growing up, strangely enough. So I got very deep into, the history section, some modern politics. We were really good about getting brand new books. Started diving deep into philosophy. We had an amazing collection of books there again. So I started kind of self-educating myself and started coming around to this idea that I'd missed a lot. Like, I had just missed a lot of development, being a drug addict and being aimless and not having any direction or goals or anything. And I started teaching in the school with the GED classes, and I found that as an adult, I had a very high aptitude for math, where as a student when I was younger, I was horrible at it. About this time, my father's mother had died, my grandmother, who was extremely, extremely close to me, and she had willed me a few $1,000s, not a lot, just a couple $1,000s, and my mom asked, what do you want to do with this? I can't send it to you, you're in prison. Like, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to start taking some college classes via correspondence, like through mail. There was one or two schools that were still even entertaining this idea, and I contacted one, sent them all my high school transcripts, did like some kind of interview paperwork with them, and I started taking math classes. And just it was such a escapism from prison, and it was the first time that math had been so challenging to me all my life. And I come from a family of highly mathematically capable people, so I'd always felt like kind of a failure because of that. But I started to shine as an adult and with math, and it started bringing me a huge source of pride when I didn't have any pride. All I had was shame and fear and hate and all these feelings that come with prison. Math was this light in my world, and I just started chasing it down. Now, there's no tutors, there's no internet, there's nothing but a textbook. and the school is just grading your work. They're not offering like help. I can't go get tutoring somewhere, and nobody else there knows much math. So I took myself up through college algebra, through trigonometry. I waded into calculus and loved it. And I took calculus 1, I took calculus 2, took multidimensional calculus, and kept a 4.0 through this entire process. And I felt like I'd finally found something. And all my life, I'd never really had anything but these reckless pursuits. And finally, I had like a thing, this very constructive thing that brought me this crazy amount of pride. It wasn't easy. The inmates were very accepting of this. Inmates, if I had to study in our common room, or was doing work or something, if shit got crazy or if people were just making a lot of noise, there were plenty of dudes that would tell their crew or their group, "Hey, chill, man. Jason's over there trying to do some math." And they'd laugh and they'd just say, "What's up?" They'd say, "What's up?" I had pretty good relations with everybody where I lived, in that cell block. I didn't have a whole lot of problems in that block.
Yeah, so they had all like said to themselves, "We all fucked up and we're trying to like correct things." Is that the whole?
No, everybody's trying to get by. What really
Right.
matters, a lot of people don't get, is just day-to-day quality of life, and kind of no one really gives too much of a shit how you got there, because
Right.
we can't get involved in everybody's history. So no one really cared too much how you got there. It was more about like how you interacted with everybody day to day. And I was respectful. I didn't talk a lot. I didn't talk a lot of shit. I didn't start problems. I stuck up for myself when I had to, and it just carried myself like a man. I had plenty of male role models growing up that I knew how men acted, and that's how I carried myself. Like I had some sense of honor, and even in a place like that, and that's what counts in there. You're polite, you have some honor, you're not a scumbag, and other people respect you from different races, different crews, whatever. There's a mutual respect that goes along with that. And I was lucky to be on a block that seniority started mattering. The longer you were there, the more people trusted you just in general. You kind of build up some weird social credit the longer you were there. And I would help people at any chance I could. You need help with your legal work? I'm not a lawyer, but I can help figure this out with you.
But if you're like you hurt children or women or something, there'd be a problem, right?
I've answered this a couple of times on Reddit too. Mostly, it depends. Okay, there are some really violent prisons out west in California that it's just, this answer probably does not qualify for that. But by and large, from what I know in the prison I was in 3 different prisons, but from where I was, and from what I know of people in other states, again, mostly, people like to think of the tough white, or like there was a Hell's Angels thing that would go around and beat up abusive parents once. That's what makes me think started this whole idea. But people think that a common myth is that a pedophile is going to show up in prison and there's some honorable big inmates that are going to just make his life hell.
Right.
And that is not true.
That's disappointing. That's what I always like to think.
I feel
I'm sorry, but
yeah, no, I feel you, because there's some real monsters in there, and I promise you, for whatever you've heard, there's worse. And there are some, as a parent, there are some very real, terrifying monsters in there and out here that look completely normal.
Yeah.
They look like the guy that at the cashier at 7-Eleven. They look completely normal, man.
Oh yeah, I know all that. Yeah.
And they are capable of the most gruesome, horrible shit against innocent children. But the point is, the pedophile thing, and if you are or not a pedophile, comes out when they need to use it against you.
Right.
So and that happens in one of 2 ways. I answered this too. There was a famous YouTuber that's going to prison about, he had underage kids sending him naked pictures or something. And, I just said, he's probably not going to have a hard time, except what's going to happen is, there's going to be a gang, depending on his race, because I didn't know who he was. Depending on his race, there's going to be a gang that approaches him and says, look, everybody knows you're a pedophile. However, we'll keep you safe. We just need some of that sweet YouTube money coming in every week.
Oh.
And you're going to be fine.
I know you're talking about that. Was like last month or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's how that goes. And that happens across every race. And they'll deny that shit, but that's how that goes. The other thing is, I mean, this happens to listen, it's more about, and also if you have money. If you come in with money, I mean, you can go back and look, the Aryan Brotherhood did this to John Gotti of all people. You know, they were giving him protection, and then I think he wanted to stop paying them, but they didn't like that so much. So they roughed him up pretty bad. He went back to paying him again. And that's no slight on John Gotti or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's just, he was outnumbered, you know? And that's how these systems work. If you have something they can use against you as leverage, you have money, you have secrets, you have weaknesses, they're going to use it, for money. You know, they want commissary, they want food, they want honey buns and soups. This is prison life. You know, they want cigarettes. The other thing is, pedophiles are mostly left alone until they want to get loud and raise their mouth. By and large, they're all narcissists.
Right.
I've encountered. They're very, very full of themselves. And, I think that has something to do with their crime. I'm not a psychologist, but,
My wife is.
Okay, well, yeah, you know, their crime seems predicated on, you know, manipulation and being smarter than everybody else. And that's how they gain this trust. And that's how they, you know, hurt these kids and convince them of all kinds of crazy shit. So they plenty of times will like to raise their voice and get loud and make a big scene. And there's a whole bunch of very scary people that will remind them of exactly who they are and where they fall in the order, and to shut up and sit down before you're a disfigured pedophile. You know, and those are the two real, in my experience, that's the only times that stuff comes up. Because the thing is, there's so many of them. That's what I didn't understand going into prison. There are so many pedophiles. If they would organize into like the pedophile gang, they would outnumber everybody in there. And they could run those joints. But that'll never happen because, I mean, if you talk to them, they're innocent. She initiated it. She told me she was 18. It's all fake. It's all one story after another. None of them are actually guilty. There's like a huge, you know, every pedophile is innocent. So,
right.
It's a really weird situation. And unfortunately in prison, most of the most intelligent people and anyone as an intelligent person you would want to talk to are pedophiles. So it made for a lot of very short friendships of meeting people and then understanding who they were and being like, oh, shit, all right, well, just never mind. You know, and so it becomes a lonely place. Very, very lonely place. You know, and I did 7 years almost to the day. So before we move on from that, do you have any specific questions about prison in general? You know, crazy stories, anything? Like, do you have anything specific you want to know?
Give me 1 second, because you know what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to pause because actually let's just let it run because I gotta go pee.
Go ahead,
man. I have to hold. I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to let it run. Okay. So give me 1 second.
No problem.
Hey, Jason, I'm back.
Ah, awesome.
God, I had to piss so bad there. So basically, you know what my podcast is about. It's about like weird shit and you know, ghosts and Bigfoot and you know, I had Francie Hicks on last week, who is a federal and state prosecutor, and she basically deals in child crimes. Well, that's what she used to do. And her co-host is Jim Clemente, who's like a big FBI person.
Mm-hmm.
So you have no, like this whole prison thing, you have no animosity against the police, or you don't have a chip on your shoulder about it. You think that they did the right thing and you did wrong, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were they dickheads about it? I mean,
No.
were they dickheads about it?
The district attorney was. So I had a district attorney who, dickhead's a good way to classify his actions. But in the end, it didn't really have an effect on anything. So whatever. It was a blip. The police were doing their job.
Right.
I was the one that was wrong. And I sincerely, I've come to really love this town. And I'm in a position now that I'm concerned about the world my kids are growing up in, and carry a lot of shame about the way I had lived that part of my life and the effect I'd had on my victims and the people I'd scared during these robberies. To even include these kids that I robbed on the corners, it's all fucked up. But it's I've dealt with a lot of that. I don't carry a whole lot of it around. Animosity towards the cops, no. There was some times in prison, guards would come in, they would destroy my math assignments that I hadn't mailed in yet. They would tear up my kids' pictures that she had sent me. They would destroy my math books. I don't really know why. I mean, I've heard plenty of people give theories about, they're just dumb hicks and they hate education. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't have an answer. It didn't really matter what the answer was. I couldn't stop it. You just pick it back up, you rewrite the math, you tape the book together, and you keep going. And at some point, during all this, I still didn't know where it was leading. I read, I hate to give this book any credit, but I read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. The takeaway from the book for me, I don't want to give it any other credit, was that I needed to create my own second chance. I had this idea coming out of this book that I needed, if this was going to work, if I was going to achieve anything, I was going to make anything of myself, I had to find a way to create my own second chance and not rely on somebody else to give it to me. And that was the spirit that I came home with. I came home just consumed with that.
What was the book again, sorry?
Atlas Shrugged.
Oh, yeah. My wife hates that book for some reason. I don't know. I never read it.
It's actually very well written. It's just used, especially in America, by libertarians love it, but it's constantly used. It's almost like the antithesis to Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. It's this ultra, very extreme capitalist manifesto.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very ridiculous. It's a ridiculous book, seriously. However, that spirit of independence, this kind of Ralph Waldo Emerson's spirit of independence and self-reliance and self-fulfillment and creation, that stuck with me, and that seemed like that's the key. That's the key. It's going to happen through work. It's going to happen through perseverance. It's going to happen through me being ready for whatever opportunity presents itself. And that's what I set off on. And I just spent all of my time learning. I spent all of my time working towards learning everything I could, so that by the time I was ready to come home, I was in some kind of position to make something of myself. And I was very lucky to come home the way I did. I don't have any stab wounds. Nothing really bad happened to me, other than just some regular fights and stuff. I witnessed some things that I guess probably never leave. Maybe people that go to combat see shit that just never leaves. You can't kind of unsee. But prison's a weird place because it could be just months and months and months of the same thing Like you could just close your eyes and drift through your day, the same routine, just over and over and over and over. And then all of a sudden, somebody's getting stabbed in the face with this giant piece of metal, and there's blood everywhere, and it almost doesn't register because you're living this mechanical routine. I wrote about maybe the most extreme thing that I saw while I was there. I wrote about it on Reddit years ago, because there was what's the craziest thing you saw in prison kind of thing, and I didn't think it was as bad as the responses that I got. I took the cake on that one. It's where most of my karma's from. We were in a morning yard and session, and there wasn't a lot of people out there. And I guess this guy, I'd never seen him before. He wasn't supposed to be out in general population, and someone messed up, and he was supposed to be. He was insane. I mean, he was just like, the definition of insane. And he just started running across the yard towards the fence, and these fences are really imposing. I mean, there's two very tall 20-foot fences. It's a forest of razor wire.
Fucking barbed wire and shit. Yeah.
Razor. There's no way in hell you're getting over this thing without like a catapult or some shit. Like, you're not getting over this thing. So I think everybody's entertained the idea of, I wonder what happens when somebody tries to climb this damn thing. Because the holes are too small to get your fingers in. It's got all kinds of sensors on it, and there's guards out there. Like, you're not getting over the damn thing.
Right.
He starts sprinting for the fence, and the whole yard kind of stops and watches, and the cops are coming from every direction. There's 3 of them out there, and they're running towards him on their radios, screaming. And he runs down into the corner where there was like a corner in the fence where made a right turn, and he reached up. And he turned around and reached up and grabbed the razor wire like he was going to do a pull-up, grabbed the razor wire with his fucking hands, and he pulls it down and starts sawing on his own neck with it. Trying to, I don't know, he's trying to saw his head off. Like, he just starts sawing on his own neck, and it's just like a river of blood. Just comes pouring out, and the cops stop. Everybody stops. That was I think the last thing anybody expected. The cops stop. They don't know what to do. I know nobody was trained for this, and they kind of collect themselves and they go over, and the dude ended up just falling down, I think from blood loss. And they're trying to put pressure on his neck and hold him together, and they have this golf cart ambulance type thing that showed up, and he was alive when they took him out of there, but we never heard what happened. I don't know if he lived. I don't know how he lived, but he was, it's like we go to morning yard every single day. So I go back to my cell after morning yard, and my cellmate's in there, and I'm just like, I don't know how to tell this story, what I just saw. Because I'm still processing, like, maybe the most extreme thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, hey, man, something weird just jumped off in the yard. Listen, I got to tell you a story. Like, and he almost didn't believe me. And then it got around the prison, and it just, and then there would be months of nothing. And then there'd be a small riot in one of the yards, or just instant chaos. It's just like you get complacent sometimes, but then after a while you learn to keep this very high level of restrained stress. You're just at a constant tense level, because you're usually not going to see it coming. You're not going to see what's happening. And the best case you can be is not in the middle of this shit. And sometimes you don't know what other people are planning, and everybody's always planning something. And it's just it's a constant, very high level stress that you don't know what to do with. You don't really have an outlet for it. I worked out like crazy, and that kind of dealt with it. But so I came home both super motivated to to rebuild my life, but really deeply scarred from that time in there. And I didn't realize that till later, but I came home, enrolled in some math classes at the community college, and started doing very well, adjusting. I came home with nothing. I had nothing. I had the clothes that I gotten from prison, and a couple books. I think I brought my calculus book and like some other books.
How long ago was this?
2011.
Okay.
2011. November of 2011. So, came home. Well, I got sent to a halfway house for a couple months to adjust, which was a great idea, honestly. As horrible as that was, it was a great idea. It was a nice transition. My mom sent me some money. I got some clothes. Started looking like a normal person, kind of going out and exploring the city a little bit. Found for at the time, what was a decent job. And was working there during the days and just kind of feeling like I was away from everything and readjusting. Enrolled in community college, taking classes, and during this time I met a woman that she and I kind of fell for each other, and we started dating, and we ended up moving in with her. And I think I got accused of kind of like just maybe getting together with like the first person I found when I came home. And I understand how maybe my family or anybody else could see it that way, but I got really fortunate to meet what I think is I still feel is like my best friend. Intellectually, she and I were so close together, and neither of us had really met anybody with the same viewpoints, the same very strange viewpoints, and some of the same, life experiences. She did not have the drug background, but she had a rough background. She'd been pretty rebellious, had been, had quite a lot of people around her that had gone through the justice system, and so a lot of these things weren't new to her. So I didn't get prejudged on a lot of that, which was fortunate for me. And I did. I got very lucky. And within about a year, she and I were married. She had a daughter who's now become my daughter. I of course had my daughter, and we made this new little family. And during all this, I found programming. I had to take some requisite programming classes as part of my mathematics degree. I had put it off because I wanted nothing to do with programming. I had very, very little experience with computers to begin with. I didn't know how to drag and drop a file when I came home. I didn't understand how that worked. I didn't know that was the thing you could do. I saw her do it one day, and I'm like, what is that? How'd you do that? I knew nothing about computers. I didn't know what the difference between a Mac and a PC was. Like, I just didn't know. I'd never used a smartphone. I didn't know what Facebook was. I'd never seen YouTube, never seen Twitter. I didn't know any of this shit was. Because I was gone from 2004 to 2011. So think about the tech revolution, the social media revolution, the smartphone revolution, everything that happened during that span of time. I missed it all. I didn't know what Angry Birds was. I didn't know why they were so angry. Like, I didn't know any of this shit. So, my kids like teaching me this stuff. I had a creative side. I'd done quite a bit of creative writing when I was in prison, and coupled with the math, programming was a very natural combination of these two. And I took to it immediately, and I had a very high aptitude for it that I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be extremely difficult and something I was going to have to really work hard at. And I did have to work hard at it, but it became this thing where I wasn't doing my other classes. I wasn't doing the homework on the classes because I'm playing around making like ridiculous, simple applications in my programming class, above and beyond, what the coursework was. I was just curious what I could do. And my wife was the one that convinced me. She's like, listen, mathematics, statistics, like, you've got a long road ahead of you. Programming is a different world. It's kind of a meritocracy. It's this thing, like, if you can build it, they'll hire you. They're going to be a lot more forgiving of your past, just because of the nature of the programming's filled with rebels, filled with hackers, filled with rebels, filled with nonconformists. There's a lot of artists. Not everybody's a mathematician. It's a very true meritocracy. If you can do it, they'll hire you. And that really fit with this new love that was growing in me for this field. And that has become my life since about 2012 until now. And I switched off from mathematics into a software engineering degree and started down that road. And I got my first programming job about a year later. I was still in school, but I was older, so I think people expected more of me. I think they don't look at a 30-something year old programmer who says he's taking some programming classes as completely new. Even though I was extremely new, I wasn't a 19-year-old kid looking for an internship. I just said, well, what's the chances? I'll just go ask for a job. Well, the worst they can say is no. Well, I found somebody to say yes. He was desperate to have somebody come in and work on his just gigantically horrible Frankenstein program. That thing still gives me nightmares. And I said, yeah, man, I'll do it. I don't care what it is. I'm familiar with the language. I'm familiar with both the languages you're using. I'd love to come in here and do it. It'd be a great experience. And he started paying me pretty decent to come in and work this job. So that led to a second position after about a year at a much bigger company that now the first job knew about my background. I told him. The second company did not know, but they explicitly did not ask. They weren't really a traditional tech company either. But they explicitly did not ask, so I didn't feel like I was hiding anything. And I just let it go. I didn't push it. But I've always been prepared that if someone brings it up, I'm honest about it. I don't try to hide it. But I don't go out and, this is really the first time I've ever talked about it, even remotely publicly. There's been some friends and colleagues along the way that I've trusted and respected that, I felt should know this.
But have you not went to meetings and stuff and talked about this kind of shit?
No, I've written quite extensively anonymously on Reddit.
Right.
But no.
You would be a great advocate in like a meeting atmosphere and stuff to tell people how they could actually be triumphant. I've
been told that, and I guess I don't know. I got to be honest. This entire process of talking about this as a whole, from beginning through the process of prison up to now, is really the first time I've told this entire story. I mean, I told it to my wife. I told it to a counselor once. I told it to my current boss because he and I have become somewhat personal friends, and I opened up to him and I explained it. But there's you and your audience are now the fourth people to ever really hear this entire story that didn't know me to begin with.
Wow.
So it's I was very nervous to tell this story like this, but there's a secondary issue that, there's a couple reasons why I wanted to, but I'll get to that at the end. But I went through 2 years of this other, working at this other job, very successfully. And, I fell into a niche of working on smart televisions, Roku and Apple TV and Fire TV and, this whole new generation of, smart TVs. TVs are going the way of smartphones. There's going to be a time soon where there's not dumb TVs. They're all going to be smart TVs. So I figured it was a very good niche to be in, and that proved very, very, very true. There's not a lot of people that that work in this very small field that I work in, which suddenly made me very sought after, and it led me to a very high level position with the company that I'm at now. I make well into six figures. I have incredible benefits. I have an amazing company that is incredibly supportive of me. Really, things could not be better professionally. I'm pretty well respected as far as I know in my industry. It's small, so a lot of us know each other. So my colleagues that I work with know this story. At some point, through us being together for a while, I've opened up to them and explained once I trust them and feel like I always like people to know me first for who I am right now before I say anything about how I got here. So I really haven't had a negative reaction professionally. I got turned down for a job one time because of it with a pretty major network. But I wasn't mad about that. It was an HR decision. The engineering team wanted me. The managers wanted me. Everybody was impressed with the story. I think I've had positive reactions to all the hard work I've done. And I've worked really hard to undo all of this the best I can, and to rebalance these scales. And so far that constant work ethic and that owning up and just being honest and trying to be as genuine as I can seems to have gone over well with the people that have heard it. So one of my reasons for coming on and agreeing to talk to you is that I feel like maybe there's a time now that I've established myself that there's a time to talk about it because it's always felt like something that someone could possibly use against me. There was a time early on when somebody was doing that. They were sending my criminal record to people that were around me, and there was a weird thing going on with the post office where we couldn't trace it. It was very bizarre, and it really scared me. I got to be honest. Whoever did it, you accomplished what you were trying to do. It very much scared me, and I would not put my current employer on LinkedIn. I was scared to tell people where I worked because I had 2 or 3 suspects that would do this, but I didn't know. I couldn't prove anything. So I hid until recently. My current job, my current job, my boss, once I explained all this to him, he saw it as an asset. He saw it as an accomplishment. He saw it as, nobody just handed this to you. You started from literally nothing and worked yourself up to an extremely talented, individual.
That's how I would see it. And someone did that to me as well when I started doing journalism in America. An female of mine wrote to the papers that I submitted articles to, and she told them all these bad things about me. Then they wouldn't let me submit any more articles. So that's why I got into podcasting, because I'm my own boss here. I can say whatever I want, and nobody can. Yeah, you can leave bad reviews, but no, I don't have to write for a newspaper, or I don't have to write for anything. I just do my own podcast and leave a bad review, but that's about all you can do.
Right. And so, right. And I feel like if the story is out there and I'm the one that's telling, the story, and all of this is verifiable, so, not making any of this up, it gives me control back over this. It takes away leverage of someone that would try to use it against me. And it also kind of pre-filters people against me. I know, once this kind of gets out and I have entertained the idea of maybe talking about this some more, that because it is my identity deep down. When it comes time to hiring, or when it comes time to, like, someone gets close to me and to make a decision about, whether or not they want to be friends or whatever, it's not like it didn't happen. It's not like it's not a part of me. And people have very extreme opinions about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think getting ahead of it and telling it in this format, now that I've accomplished something. I think 5 years ago, if I would have told this story, it would just be like, man, I got a lot of plans, and I just came out of prison, got a lot of plans, it's going to be great one day, and it really wouldn't have meant anything. There's a lot of people that say that, but I'm just been plowing ahead as hard as I can. I hardly sleep. I fall asleep in my office a lot of nights. I'm just constantly working on multiple projects, and I don't know when that stops, but I'm just, full speed ahead, everything I can do, because there's another part of this that also, the whole experience left me with what, I guess I can best describe as some pretty severe PTSD. It started with when I came home, these, very, very serious night terrors. I'd had this recurring dream where I was standing in the prison yard, and they had erected these gallows, and there's people still up there that I care very deeply for. We lived through extreme experiences and life and death experiences, and so that means it's almost, I guess, how soldiers, when they go to war, they go through these life and death experiences, and these people become family to them. And there are people still there that are, mean something to me deeply. And I would have this recurring dream where they were leading them up to these gallows to be hung one by one, and I'm the only person watching this, and I have a baby in my arms, like this newborn baby. He's not crying or anything, but I'm bawling. Like, I'm crying, and my tears are falling on this baby, and like, just one by one, they're executing the people I care about in front of me. And like, I don't know what 40 interpretation, or I don't know what the interpretation.
I know what that means. I totally know what that means. I do like dream analysis for my wife and stuff all the time. That means that you have to get out there and be some kind of a speaker in some of these circles. I think that's what that means. It sounds like you want to save these people, and you want some kind of I think that's what that means. I've done this for years, and I can see it very clearly. I think that you should go out there and be some kind of a motivational speaker and save people from this kind of shit that you had to go through. I don't know. That's just what I think.
I have nothing to dispute that with, I would wake up and I was feeling like I was having a heart attack, which I think I was having a panic attack in the middle of the night, and that's night terror. I would wake up and it felt like someone was like standing on my chest. I legit thought I was having a heart attack. Those died off, and it's been replaced with another dream that I wish would go the fuck away, which is I have this about once a month where I wake, I'm in prison, and I only have a few months left on my parole. I'm almost done with all of this. And in Pennsylvania, if you violate your parole, they take all of the time that you have been free, which for me has now been 7 years, and they add it back onto your sentence.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you have to redo it. So it's a very terrifying prospect. So I have this dream where I'm back in my old prison. All the old faces are there. But no one will talk to me. And no one, like the officials, no one will tell me what I did. No one will tell me why I'm there. It's this very Kafka-esque type thing where, like, no one has any information. I'm just stuck. And when I get information, what they always tell me, look, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before anybody, can talk to you and meet with you and let you know what's going on. And you can't make phone calls. Nobody knows. My wife doesn't know where I am. My children don't know where I am. My family doesn't know where I am. I've now lost my job. I've lost everything I've built. And I have this breakdown, and in every single one, I have this thought of, I have fucked my family over so bad by whatever the thing is I did. I never know what it is. But I'm like, it always ends with, I should kill myself because they would get, I have quite a bit of life insurance through my employer. They would get this money and it would fix all the damage I've done with them. And that thought is always real, and it goes through my head during these dreams. But I've actually been lucky the last 2 years where I start to realize I've had this dream before that's just like this, and I start to wake myself up. Once it gets very extreme and I get to that point, I also start realizing that, shit, this isn't real. And I come out of it. But I'm destroyed for the rest of the, after having that emotional roller coaster all night, and legitimately thinking about suicide, to benefit my family.
Nah. We're recording now. So, Jason, sorry, we got just disconnected, and you were telling me about your dream, and you were telling me about how you had a life insurance policy, and how it'd be better for everybody if you just weren't here, and your kids would get the proceeds.
Right. I think in this recurring dream that I have, it's like I said, I'm back in prison, and no one will tell me why. I see I'm going to be there for years, and everything I've built, everything I've accomplished, it's all gone. I'm reduced back to nothing again, and now I know my wife has to sell her house, and I don't, she can't afford, we live on 2 salaries, she'd have to sell her car. All these things would happen, and the desperation gets so extreme that I end up at this place where I'm thinking about killing myself because there's a substantial life insurance policy on me that they would inherit. And like I said, I've been lucky that I've had this dream so many times that usually when I get to that point, though, I realize somehow that I'm dreaming, and I'm able to wake myself up, which is a real benefit. It's weird. I've never had any other dreams like that, but so I'm a mess the rest of the day, because I've realistically gone to this point where I was to the point I was contemplating suicide, but now I have to get up and go to meetings and go on with my day and get my kids ready for school, and, so it becomes a lasting scar that doesn't really go away.
Okay, so basically what happens is that you've got to man up, and this is what you're telling yourself, that I do the same thing, because if I didn't have kids, I probably would have just jumped over a bridge years ago, because what's the point in going on if you don't have kids? But it's for the kids, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing the manly thing. Are you a big fan of Jordan Peterson and Jocko Willink and stuff?
Yeah, I listened to Jocko a little bit. David Goggins lately.
Oh yeah, he's an inspiration.
Yeah,
right?
man. David Goggins has really been mentally kind of pushing me to. I've been working so much that I've let a lot of other parts of my life kind of go and get lazy and sloppy with. And Goggins is a real inspiration, and he was the attitude I had when I came home. The no bullshit, just work. That's how you accomplish anything. Just work. Shut up. Quit bitching about it. Go work. And that attitude is waning in me somewhat the more I actually work, because I haven't been to the gym in 2 years. I've gained a bunch of weight. I don't keep up with little detail stuff and around the house. And there's a lot of points in my life that I need to take that Goggins approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I was all in the meditation for a couple of years there, and it's all, gone now, but I would love to get back into it and become where I was, but it's a struggle.
It's interesting you say meditation. I am not religious at all, and however, I discovered and learned quite a bit about Buddhism.
Oh yeah,
while I was incarcerated, and just some simple tenets of that religion. The idea of impermanence, and then kind of being okay with that. That acceptance of the lack of control and the lack of permanence was a real benefit when you have no control. When you're incarcerated, you have zero control over your life. That was a huge mental and emotional awakening to kind of come to terms with that. It's something I've tried to carry on.
Did you read any Buddhist books?
I did. It was something of an academic book, but it was like it was something about Japanese Zen Buddhism.
The Three Pillars of Zen?
Maybe. The thing that I had, that was like kind of my intro to Buddhism, but then I started reading more, and some of this like Pure Land Buddhism had a lot of like afterlife stuff, and I couldn't really get into it, but just this pure, Asian Zen Buddhism of just dealing with existence. It's almost like an Asian existentialism. That really, really struck me, because you're in this environment where you're reduced to, I don't know that monks have a whole lot more than we had in prison. So you are reduced to this very simplistic lifestyle, and you don't have any control. And you're really living out a lot of the concepts and a lot of the situations that they tried to present to a normal reader. Imagine if you're this, imagine if you're that. Well, we are in a really tough situation, really bad times. And we have
prison's perfect for that kind of shit.
Yeah, we are suffering. So it's not just, existence is suffering. Yeah, our days are suffering. And it's a mental way to deal with that. Yeah, it was a huge, huge benefit.
That's cool, because I got really into Buddhism when I was like 40, same age as yourself. And I turned 49 yesterday, and I've like somewhat fallen off the path, but that is the most attractive religion to me. It's Buddhism. It's definitely the one that I want to really study, but I have issues too, so it's like it's hard to try to stay on the path of any kind of discipline.
It is. It definitely is. Especially, when most, I think America is becoming much more secular in the West, and that's not a new trend. But something like Buddhism, where you're just talking about day-to-day existence and how to deal with that, is much more appealing than these cycles of sin and repentance and judgment, all the complexities that come along with that. And prison's a weird place, man. It really forces people, a lot of people go back to church, and a lot of inmates join this American version of Black Islam. There's a lot of religious activity in prison. I was definitely a minority in not subscribing to any faith.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of Buddhist monks went into prison and did a lot of work there and stuff, and they offered themselves up, and I can't remember who it was. But there's a lot of people like Noel Levine and stuff. Have you heard of him?
No.
Well, he's into this whole the recovery, Buddhist recovery or something. I can't remember what the hell the name of it is. Dharma recovery or something like that. But he's really into people with addictions, overcoming them with Buddhism and stuff like that. And which I think Buddhism, out of all of the religions, makes the most sense to me. Growing up as a Catholic in Ireland, I think that Catholicism, I'm sure, is fine, but it's not for me. I think that Buddhism is a lot more. It makes a lot more sense to me.
I can understand that. I can also understand how somebody from Ireland would have maybe be a little bit jaded on Catholicism or Protestantism. You guys had troubles. You guys had a lot of different troubles than we did here in the States.
Yeah, we were killing each other. We were like
Yeah.
ripping each other's like toenails out and shit. But we were blowing each other to pieces. But I didn't, and my friends didn't. We were like peaceful, and we loved each other. And most of my friends are Protestants. But we did have a war going on, and I mean at night I would hear bombs going off in the distance, like 4 miles away. You just hear these bombs being thrown at the British patrols that were like, because the Brits patrolled all of these really bad neighborhoods, and then we could just get like coffee jar bombs thrown at them all the time, and you would hear these like 4 miles away. They were like, boom. You'd be going to sleep and you just hear it,
That's
when you were a kid. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's a lot crazier than people realize. And then there was just a lot of murders that were motivated by like sectarianism, like just that wasn't probably reported over here, but some lady walked into the wrong bar and she ended up getting like fucking just like destroyed and tortured and like put into a trash can, this kind of shit.
Yeah, I read like a popular history book on the Troubles. I think that's how you guys call it. This whole IRA struggle.
Yeah.
And just some of the people were very willing to do a lot of really awful shit in the name of religion.
But I think these people were they're fucked up to start with. I think sometimes they're the worst of the worst, and like any kind of a cause will bring them out of the woodwork. So I think that these kind of people will do whatever they're going to do anyway. I don't know. So I'm glad we got to sort out the technical difficulties in the last part. I should have hit record the last times, but I didn't. I forgot. And you got to do that kind of shit. So,
yeah, it happens.
So, I can't remember what our last segment was about. It was about you being maybe a motivational speaker or something, and maybe that's what your dream is telling you, and to get out there and maybe, I don't know, speak to people.
Yeah, I mean that is a possibility. So someone had mentioned that to me in the past, and I never really felt like I was at a place in my life to even remotely begin to suggest what somebody else should do. I've just been in this constant state of working towards like this final version of myself, or this rehabilitated version of myself, or successful version, however you want to say it. And I turned that idea down originally, but you may be right. You may be right that maybe that's the outlet. Maybe it would benefit people. You can
certainly talk. I don't think you have any problem talking.
My wife says I don't have a problem talking either.
Mine too. I tell my wife, I'm like, I have social anxiety. She's like, you can talk to anybody. What are you talking about?
I don't have I usually don't have a problem talking to people. It's this has been the first time, honestly, like I said, that I've really gone through the details of all of this. So I thank you for kind of leading the questions and bringing a lot of this out.
I'm just winging it, I'm doing the whole Joe Rogan approach. I'm just like, I don't have anything written down. I read your biography and stuff, and then I just kind of go off that and let you talk, and that's how I do the podcast.
I think it worked really well.
Yeah, I think it did too. I think it's a really good one. So I'm gonna go and edit this and put some cool music in there and cut some of the shit out. Is it the wife?
No, it's my kid.
Okay, so I will let you go.
The kid's yelling at the cats.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I'll let you go, and thank God we got the last part figured out. So, hey man, Stay in touch.
All right, thanks, Cornell.
All right, Jason.
All right, see you, man.
Bye now.
Bye.